That could be a really immersive, really fun gaming experience, but that's only possible if they share infrastructure.
NFTs that had like pretty strong communities, but the team wasn't shipping any.
What is a publisher stack? Like, what does that entail?
Welcome back to The Roll-Up, your home for technical talks and open conversations that shape the modular future. Nothing on today's show is to be construed as financial advice. You can see our full disclosures list at therollup.co/ventures. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode after a quick word from some of our awesome partners.
Redstone is DeFi's modular oracle, supporting over 100 clients on over 50 chains and offering 1,000 assets. Redstone is the leader for Bitcoin staking and yield-bearing assets. They offer the most robust, customizable price feeds available in any model. Join the Redstone exhibition today.
So Jeff, I don't know if you remember our first podcast episode. We were DeFi Slate in 2020. You don't even freaking remember it. This is what I mean. And this was like this was like June 2020. So Axie, like the token hadn't even ripped, the ecosystem hadn't grown, and as part of the podcast, as a thank you, you gifted me a piece of Axie land. When Axie was like, I don't even know, man. Axie, it was like $10.
Damn.
I'm not even gonna say what that got to or like what happened, but that is our lore, Jeff. So welcome back to the Roll Up now from DeFi Slate Days. We're live in Bangkok. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to see you guys grow and kind of evolve into Ronin now, which has got massive users, and just kind of that evolution. So big congratulations. And how are you feeling about Thailand and just, you know, the space as a whole? Everyone's super bullish. So, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a change in the last couple of weeks. It really felt like momentum shifted. And I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. The vibes here in Bangkok are stupendous. It's actually my first DevCon, so I'm here exploring, soaking things in, and yeah, it's been great. Good.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of people are familiar with Axie from kind of back in the day, but maybe haven't really been keeping up with the times, despite the growth that you guys have had. So maybe you could catch us up on, you know, how things have been going in recent months and even a couple of last years.
It's a bit reminiscent of last cycle, right? Where 2018, 2019, even 2020, we were just heads down building, made a lot of improvements and then blew up as the cycle started to heat up. And that was 2021. I feel like a similar thing has been happening where, you know, Ronin has gone way beyond Axie, right? We had a game called Pixels hit 1.5 million DAU, right? They're generating, I think, $1.5 million a month in revenue, right? So proving out that, hey, like this infrastructure works, it worked for Axie, now it's working for the next generation of Web3 games. So yeah, it's been a lot of our focus is, you know, still maintaining and keeping updates to the Axie universe, a lot of like economic experiments, but also, right, basically how do we build this Web3 publisher stack? What are all the right considerations? How do we help with distribution, right? So yeah, that's been a lot of what's consumed us.
What is a publisher stack? Like, what does that entail?
Yeah, so that's what we're looking to define. Generally, in Web3, not just in gaming, right? You have a lot of technical founders that need help with distribution, right? They can build, but they're not super sure how to sell yet, right? So because we had this dormant, right, or relatively untapped player base in Axie, right, that was already knew how to play Web3 games, already had a Web3 wallet downloaded. That's been proven out as like a good initial distribution channel for these game developers. They can get their first 10K, 20K, their golden cohort of initial users and testers, and right, basically then scale from there. So yeah, we help them with, we help the games on Ronin, right, with distribution. We have 12 million emails. We have 15 million Ronin wallet downloads. We can send push notifications. Obviously, like, we have our channels, right? So a lot of it is that, and then there's like the solutions engineering, right? Like, how do we improve our docs? How do we make it so that deploying on Ronin, making a game on Ronin is like more self-serve and less like manual hand-holding?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things, Rob, that we've been talking about, right? Is like building these infrastructure stacks and then being able to be a means of distribution for application builders to come in. Because like, what do devs want, right? Devs want their stuff to be used, right? Like they want users, they want real-time activity. And so one of the core things that Rob and I have been battling with is like this idea of, right now a lot of the crypto ecosystem is like very like PvP in terms of fighting for a small pie. Whereas if we can go out and actually kind of build distribution channels to non-crypto native users, and I think gaming is a really big example of this, then we can basically focus on a blue ocean rather than kind of fighting for what we have here. And I feel like Ronin is a great example of this for new application builders. Like what are some of the distribution strategies that you've seen that work? Or like when application builders come to you, game builders, they're like, okay, we want to build on Ronin. Like what do they get the most excited about from the distribution side?
So we have this passionate community in places like the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Argentina, Venezuela, Brazil. And we can activate that community, right, for the different games that are coming onto Ronin. So Pixels, when Luke, the founder of Pixels, reached out to us, it was like, hey, a lot of our players are actually from your community. We've seen that they're really good fits. Like, we want to migrate our entire game over to Ronin because we know that the rest of the community is going to love this thing, right? So we also, we have all the tools that you need, and they just work, right? Like, we have an NFT marketplace. We have a DEX. We have a wallet. All of those are pretty vertically integrated amongst each other, which creates this smoother user experience, right? So our experience, we didn't initially want to build a blockchain, a wallet, everything, right? We deployed on Ethereum in 2018, right? We were from the CryptoKitties community. We deployed Axie Infinity on Ethereum, but we knew that we would have to think about long-term scaling right off the bat. Why? Because obviously CryptoKitties clogged the entire network, right? But we didn't want to build that ourselves, right? So we explored things like Loom Network, which was like an early plasma solution. It was kind of on the right direction, but it was just too early. You can't build your startup on top of another startup, right? So that's basically why we built Ronin, to build all the tools that we needed for building to scale Axie. And then, right, the idea was like, hey, we prove it out with Axie, then we can do it again. We were starting to see that playbook unfold, right? The hypothesis was we could recreate that Axie magic with other games using the same infrastructure, and we have some indication that that's working through case studies like Pixels.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And one of the things that kind of was most exciting to me when I was thinking about Web3 gaming was this idea of worlds colliding. There was actually it's kind of a blast from the past, but I used to watch Fairly Odd Parents and Jimmy Neutron, and they did this mashup episode.
Dude, that was wild.
And so there was this vision that for Web3 gaming where you could have a game over here and then you could have a game over there, but if they are synergistic and composable like these DeFi money Legos from DeFi Summer, that could be a really immersive, really fun gaming experience, but that's only possible if they share infrastructure. And I guess the question here is how can we make that a reality? What is kind of the infrastructure that is providing the network effects to Pixel and Axie? What are, how do those network effects manifest in today's terms?
All right, so a network is a system that gets basically more valuable the more connected it is, right, with each subsequent connection. And the idea, right, is that because this is a gaming network, right, every subsequent user basically adds more value because that provides, right, more player liquidity. The games actually get more fun to play as you have more people in the network, right? Like Axie originally, the PvP card battle game, right? We thought of the use of incentives there because it was like, hey, if we use incentives to get to a certain number of players, this game is actually going to be more fun. And that's what's happening on Ronin, right? Like every successful game that launches brings net new people into the network, and it makes it, right, an easier road for the next game that's deploying on Ronin, right? Because you have a larger audience. So yeah, I think in terms of the interop, I actually see that in terms of user acquisition, right? So Pixels did this really well where they were integrating different PFPs and NFTs to use as your character skin in the game, right? So there wasn't much utility, to be honest, right? It was more just like, hey, you can use your character in this game, and that was a great top of funnel mechanism for them. Where, right, it's like let's imagine you're holding this useless NFT, right? Nothing has happened since 2022. All of a sudden, this game says, hey, like you can use that NFT in this game as a skin. You're gonna check it out, right? So that was an interesting insight for me from the Pixels team. Was they said, hey, like the ones that are actually working out the best are not necessarily the most popular NFTs. It was more like the NFTs that had like pretty strong communities, but the team wasn't shipping anything.
Got it. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting kind of dynamic between like reactivating dormant assets or just like dormant communities from different geographical locations or just different online organic communities. And I think like one thing that Ronin has done well is actually like get users. Like, wow, we have users like on chain, like not bots, like real users, right? And so you guys have some pretty impressive stats on your chain, and kind of those users are active on a daily and a monthly basis. Talk to us about kind of like what some of those stats are, why those users are so kind of fervent on Ronin, and kind of like how you guys have built Ronin to be very, like what other builders can learn from Ronin's catering of their users, and like how you guys have done such a good job of keeping those people on your chain.
Yeah, so the Ronin wallet has been downloaded over 12 million times. Ronin has around 950,000 daily active on-chain addresses, around 4 million monthly active on-chain addresses. I think it's, right, by number of users, the 5th most used chain right now. Sometimes it's number 3, it's fluctuating a bit. And yeah, we've put a lot of focus on users. I think a lot of platform and ecosystem builders, right, they just try to build better tech and then try to do good BD and hope that people choose them, right, or they have to compete with large grants. Our approach is very different, where I'm not saying it's easier or harder. This is just the approach that was viable for us. Was, hey, we built our own killer game, killer app, proved it out, use the chain actually to scale that out. And then, boom, right? Like we have this proven case study. We are our own dog fooding experiment. And then, we brought it out, and it was like, because we went through that process of building a game, we knew, right, like what are the things that are important, right? We're able to prioritize what we actually built out for the chain, right? So we knew that, hey, a wallet's going to be super important, right? Like some sort of NFT marketplace, a DEX, and those were really like a lot of the core components that we had to build, and we chose to prioritize. So yeah, I think like we've gotten users because we're supremely practical. We are the users of our own infrastructure as well. So I think like basically that really tight relationship between, right, like our game building prowess and our infrastructure prowess, that's something that's pretty unique, and I think has allowed us to prioritize the expansion of our ecosystem in the right way.
Interesting. I think like what's funny is that the valuation today of crypto assets tied to the fundamentals is still like disconnected, right? So like Ronin being in the top 5 user-based chain, you would think that like there would be a extreme valuation premium directly correlated to Ron, the asset. How are you thinking about Ron, the asset, as it persists in the Ronin chain and in that ecosystem? And kind of like what's the way to think about Ron, the asset, as a core function of Ronin for the community?
Imagine if the world's GDP moved on chain. Guys, say GM to SafeNet. The newest protocol by Safe isn't a blockchain, and it's not a new layer 2. It's a transaction processing network built to send money anywhere and swap anything on thousands of layer 2s from a single universal balance in sub 500 milliseconds. It's fast, it's smooth, and it's simple. And it's built with safe multi-sig level security in mind. SafeNet unlocks smart accounts across multiple chains, allowing users to supercharge security, scalability, and speed. So get started today at net.safe.global, and remember to follow @safe on X. Welcome aboard on our journey into the singularity. This is the endgame roadmap for Frax and Fraxtal, the new L2 out of the Frax ecosystem that is totally based on fractal scaling. Fraxtal is a modular L2 blockchain built by Frax with modular and fractal scaling in mind. Fractal scaling is based on the Mandelbrot set of fractal images, and it explains how L2s become L3s and the entire app chain lifecycle goes through its evolution. The Frax ecosystem is made of some of the top builders in the space and has stemmed from its OG days of the Frax stablecoin. It is now in the LST space, the LRT space, and this Fraxtal L2 joins the existing suite of Frax products, including Frax Swap and Frax Lend. You can see Frax Ferry, the bridge to go from any chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, or mainnet into the Fraxtal mainnet. Bridge your tokens and bring your Frax assets into the Fraxtal ecosystem. Join today to get the best out of Fraxtal. You are still early. Join today. Take part in our expedition into the singularity.
Yeah, so Ronin is a gas token, is used for gas on Ronin. But we've also done some interesting things where we've kind of socialized core utilities, right? So, for example, we have a DEX, Uniswap, Katana, which is actually a Uniswap V2 fork, right? We'll upgrade that to V3, V4 moving forward. But that DEX actually has the fee switch already enabled at 0.05%, and that feeds fees into the treasury. We have a similar mechanic with the NFT marketplace on Ronin, the Mavis market, where there's a 0.5% fee that goes into the Ronin treasury, right? So it's used as gas. You can stake it to also validate transactions. But we also have this like other, I think, unique aspect of it, which is basically the socialization of core utilities on the Ronin chain, and that being another alternative source of fees. Yeah, when fundamentals are basically underrated right now, to say the least.
Yeah.
That will not always be the case. I believe that Bitcoin and memes had like some sort of a regulatory moat during the previous administration that is now eroded, and I think that builders were very limited when it came to the ways that they could consider adding utility to their tokens, and things are about to open up a lot when it comes to experimentation. I believe that, so last cycle we did a lot of experimentation with distribution of tokens, right? Yep. Emissions of tokens, farming, airdrops, the whole 9 yards. Play to earn is, in my opinion, just a novel reinterpretation of DeFi farming mechanics in gaming.
100%.
So that was last cycle. I believe that this cycle, a lot of the experimentation and exciting new things will actually be around utility of tokens, right? Buyback and burns, new basically ways of creating demand. And this ties to the meme coin Bitcoin thing, right? Where it's like, okay, meme coins, people buy them because they don't have to fight the unlocks, right? Yeah. So if you're very handheld, if you're basically very restricted with the types of utility that you can explore for these utility tokens, right? Like, you're in the worst of both worlds, right? Where you have unlocks, but you are unable to actually give the token substantial utility.
Right, and that's shifting now, basically.
Yeah, and so that's not where you guys are locked into, right? Because you guys have this network of users, and there are effects that you can have with this gas token. It doesn't have to be tied to fundamentals, but you have the community, right? And so the idea is that there's community, or these communities form these mimetic properties. They rally around sort of like a certain set of community values, and then that leads to kind of this mimetic value monetary premium thesis. So I just want to, what I want to ask is like, why do you think the community that is so vast on Ronin hasn't quite like turned into monetary premium?
Because it hasn't. Yeah.
Right, because you have the seed there, right? You have the community. I'm sure this community, right, it has values, right? But why have, like, what is the gap that is getting crossed into monetary premium? Kind of like, how do we cross that chasm?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of updates that will help with that. And traditionally the Ronin community has been a little bit isolated from the rest of the Ethereum community. We started out on Ethereum, and we've always kind of been exploring scaling, right? basically the history of our block space, I think, is really interesting, right? First on Ethereum, then some partially on Loom Network, then right through the side chain. So I think a couple of things. First, right, Ronin is currently curated, or like a permission chain, right? And there are a ton of builders that want to come onto Ronin. Our approach has been a little bit different, where we wanted to initially, right, curate and have like very high signal, high quality games. We felt like we could pick some winners. Then, okay, we learn a lot through that, and then we scale that up, because we don't want to scale up like a system that we don't understand how it operates, right? So basically, we'll be opening up the Ronin chain for like permissionless deployment. I think that'll be a huge catalyst where, okay, a lot of new builders will start exploring Ronin and introducing their respective user bases to the chain. Two is, right, like exploration of our long-term scaling strategy, right? So I believe that Ronin is a bit discounted when it comes to its monetary premium, because right now it's seen as an Ethereum EVM sidechain. But I think that as we solidify our plans for long-term scaling, right, that's an opportunity, right, to become closer to the rest of the Ethereum ecosystem, right, depending on what we choose, right? Whether right now we're like working with the Polygon CDK, for example, right, to basically deploy zkVM on top of Ronin, right? So I think that's another catalyst that we have up and coming. And I think third is just the narrative, right? Like, we've been focused on getting real users, right? So you can't do everything, right? We've been focused on getting users and adoption, and we prioritize that rather than, right, just trying to market to crypto whales and stuff like that, right? I think our approach is more to get users, to get demonstrable traction, and to kind of go from there. Whereas I think a lot of projects, right, mainly focus on token marketing, and that side of the coin. Whereas we've seen that traction eventually manifests or turns into market cap.
Yeah, because you can monetize it. You can do, once you have that base, that foundation, especially in this new regime, as you kind of alluded to, you can then build off that, right? And whereas starting the other way, you kind of put the wrong foot forward first, and so yeah.
And to your point earlier, you guys have done a great job with retention, and so you guys have planted the seed, you've gotten the community, and I think it's a more sustainable strategy.
So as we kind of wrap up, my last question is around the rise of Axie Infinity and kind of the key lessons that you learned from this meteoric rise of Axie Infinity as a community and as a game. Like, for other founders who will eventually watch this and experience hopefully exponential hockey stick growth themselves, of community, of token price, of follower count, of audience, of distribution, what are some of the lessons that you learned throughout that process on keeping your head straight, building for the community, and just kind of looking back on that?
Well, I'll take this opportunity to plug my ebook. It's called the Web3 Gaming Growth Handbook. I've gotten really great feedback on that. It's kind of like a compilation of a lot of the lessons that we learned, primarily on distribution, right? Like, I think everyone is really good at like product development and engineering in Web3, and we're less systematic about growth. So that's really what that book is about. So, for me, a lot of it was like, how to use token incentives for growth, and also like some of the drawbacks of that. How to specifically target people and to have them join our ecosystem. We used to give out like targeted giveaways of Axies to CryptoKitties players, to then Decentraland, right? So how to pivot into something that's trending, right? So last cycle, or like in 2019, we realized, hey, like nobody cares about NFTs, but everyone loves DeFi. So let's explore what we can do with like different DeFi protocols, right? And that ended up, having a lot of implication for, right, the birth of play to earn, which is basically just a combination of gaming and DeFi. So yeah, I think like the Axie community has a ton of shared experiences, shared trauma over the years, and I think that's one of the biggest lessons, right? Is like that people are here to make connections. Of course, people are here to, right, gain economic, financial freedom for themselves. That's always going to be like some aspect of crypto. of course, but there is a ton of value in the communities and the memories that you're creating, and we've had to think a lot about, right, like how do you create like almost like emotional or like emotional value in your ecosystem that's not just like relying purely on incentives.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today, coming out here. I hope you have a great week in Bangkok. It's quite hectic, so keep your head on straight, and thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers.